first iPad meeting, very exciting. For those that haven't had the pleasure of being in a meeting before, well, please turn off your cell phones, but it looks like we just have one guest today. But turn off your cell phones or at least put them on silent. We appreciate that. And the way things work is once we call the roll and approve the minutes, we take items one at a time. Once we announce the item, city staff presents on that item, and then initially it's open just to the commission for technical questions. Once we're done with our technical questions, we close that and go up to the public for public commentary. If you have something to say, please step up to the microphone and state your name and address so we have it for the minutes. With that, Mina, let us call the roll.
Kathleen Propp. Mamadou Coulibaly.
Aye.
Lindsay Erickson.
Here.
Michael Ford.
Here.
John Hintz. John Kiefer.
Here.
Lori Palmieri. Thomas Perry.
Here.
Robert Mitchell. Derek Groth.
Here.
Thomas Voitak.
Here. On to the approval of the minutes from February 4th. Do we have any additions, corrections, deletions to those minutes? Do we have a motion to approve?
I move approval. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. On to item number 1, an extraterritorial 2-lot land division and certified survey map at 2888 Clairville Road in the town of Algoma.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Welcome, sir.
This is a land.
Oh, pardon me. Do we have any site inspections? Pardon me, we did not. Okay, sorry, Jeff.
No problem. This is a land division request in the town of Algoma, located at the southeast corner of West 20th Avenue and Clairville Road. Up on the screen, I have an aerial photo showing the subject site. The site is also located within the Zone C city expansion area per the City of Oshkosh and Town of Algoma Cooperative Plan. Per that agreement, the City of Oshkosh has zoning jurisdiction over the area, which means that any new land uses or land divisions must conform to the underlying zone district, which is implemented by the city. This specific area, or the Zone C area, will be automatically attached to the city on March 1st, 2023, if the properties don't attach beforehand. The site is zoned with a single-family residence district with the extraterritorial zoning, R1, which pretty much permits single-family residential uses and also some light-intensity uses through a conditional use permit. The current site has an existing single-family house on the northern portion of the property with the southern 190 feet or so undeveloped south of the house. The existing lot is approximately 489 acres in size, and they're proposing to slice off or divide just under half an acre to create a new lot on the south side of the existing property. The applicant stated, or the owner stated on the application that the reason for the land division is to eventually market this new lot down here for sale for single-family development. One item to note on this site, go to the next slide here. We should all be familiar with this, the current floodplain letter of map amendment that's pending with Winnebago County. The site was in or affected by floodplain through the 2003 FEMA floodplain insurance program. With the works the city's done in the Sawyer Creek area over the last 15 years, and the modeling done by Strand, removed the entire property outside of the 100-year floodplain. Now, the pending the holdup, the holdup with the flood storage districts. If the county does not approve the flood storage districts, it does now again impact the property, and then putting the proposed lot 2 entirely within the 100-year floodplain. The consequences of that is they could still potentially build a house there, but the house would have to meet floodplain engineering standards as well. They would have to conduct an engineering survey to determine the impact on the floodplain upstream of the subject site. The city's comprehensive plan does recommend this area for light density residential, so the proposed land division is consistent with the comprehensive plan. And the Department of Public Works reviewed the proposed land division and shared the same concerns regarding the floodplain. So with that, staff is recommending approval of the 2-lot land division at the southwest corner of 20th and Clairville as proposed.
Thank you. Technical questions from the commission? John?
If Clearview is expanded, I don't know what the plans are for that, but would the lot, change at all size-wise? I mean, would it make it less than desirable size, where that, maybe that back portion would be included now, or?
I mean, once this area would be, if it is urbanized, as it comes into the city, Clearville would be expanded more to an urbanized roadway. At a half an acre, it vastly exceeds the minimum lot requirements for the city. So if that happened, I would not anticipate that it would be a concern. I don't know, Justin, is there any?
Well, Clairville is a collector street, and it's currently a 66-foot wide right-of-way, so it'd be unlikely that the city would require any additional right-of-way from on either side of Clairville. So it's sized appropriately.
Other technical questions? All right, seeing none. Anyone here from the public to speak to this item today? Come on up, sir. If you'd like to step up to the microphone, state your name and address so we have it for the minutes, we'd appreciate that very much.
Steve House, 2888 Clairville Road. I just want to say that Lot 2 has been raised up. It's out of the floodplain. The only area that has not been raised up is the north lot line, where I developed a swale to drain the 13 or 18 acres to the southeast. It all drains to that way, and I'm bringing it down towards the ditch, so it wants to.
So the issue here is that a lot of the improvements that the city has made, we went through a modeling process and tried to get the floodplain ordinances updated. That updated is basically this pink area. As part of that modeling, there was flood storage districts included in both the city and the county. The county has yet to adopt them, and if they refuse to adopt them or they deny those flood storage district, the floodplain goes back to what you see in purple. So as a property owner, you will be interested of whether or not the county is going to adopt those flood storage districts or not. They will be having a meeting at their planning and zoning committee on March 31st at 6:30 p.m.
Yes,
to
I'm aware of
discuss that. Yeah, I would recommend you attend that so you can find a little what's going on. Yeah, but if they would deny it, Lot 2 would be completely within the floodplain, and have to meet floodplain standards and flood insurance.
And then it would be up to you if you wanted to have a floodplain survey done just for your property. You would have to incur the expense to have a consultant come out there and go through the.
Understand that. What I'm saying is that Lot 2 has been raised physically 2 feet
But
plus out
this
of the
is-
lane. I just haven't had the, Martinson and Easley hasn't filed the paperwork.
Hasn't done a letter of
Yeah.
map amendment for you.
Well, hopefully they won't need to.
Yeah, if the county approves the flood storage districts,
Yeah.
you won't need to do that letter of map amendment. If they do not, then you would probably be in your best interest to have Martin Isley do that letter of map amendment.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else here to speak to this item today? Okay, back to the commission. We have a motion.
What is the,
We need a motion first.
I'll make a motion to adopt the findings and recommendation as stated in the staff report.
Second.
All right. What do you want to do?
what is the flood storage district?
So flood storage districts, Justin, can you give the best explanation for that? Where's Steve when we need him?
Yeah, he's downstairs. Flood storage districts are zoning regulations put on properties that habitually flood currently. So the areas that are in question are areas of low-lying farmland in the county that currently flood. And basically what the flood storage district would do would not allow fill to be brought into those areas to raise the elevation of it without giving a compensation elsewhere. So basically, if the farmer wants to fill the area with a 5-gallon bucket full of soil, he needs to compensate that with a 5-gallon bucket full outside the area to make up that volume.
And we're talking just the Sawyer Creek watershed.
Correct.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
It's essentially a cut and fill requirement, a 1-to-1 ratio. If you want to put dirt here, you got to take it out of here within the same property. And it's a limited number of properties that Justin said that it actually affects. And the areas that have been prone to flood and hold water now.
Okay, so the regulation will allow to do that, but the owner already apparently did some filling.
No, no. So the flood storage districts are not in this area. They're much, I shouldn't say much. They are southwest of this area. And if those flood storage districts are approved, the pink becomes the map. If those flood storage districts are not approved, the purple becomes the floodplain map.
Other questions or thoughts, discussion? Seeing none, then let's call a roll.
Perry,
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Groth,
Aye.
Kulbali,
Aye.
Erickson, Ford,
Aye.
Kiefer,
Aye.
Wojtek.
Aye.
Motion carried 8-0.
On to item number 2, which is approval of the Sawdust District Master Plan. This is legislative, so there's no site inspections. We do accept the staff report as part of the record. On to you guys.
And we do have a couple of extra color copies here if anybody wants one.
All right, thanks. So the Community Development Department is requesting approval of the Sawdust District Master Plan, which describes the future goals and objectives for land use, development, transportation in the district. So the Sawdust Master Plan was developed in collaboration with consultant Housea Levine Associates, city staff, and the Sawdust District Advisory Group. So the plan area focuses on the area south of the river. It's bound by the Fox River to the north, Lake Winnebago to the east, Main Street and Nebraska to the west, and it goes as far south as 17th Avenue. So this originated from the it was a functional sub-area of the Imagine Oshkosh Master Plan, which was adopted in 2017. You can see this map shows a little bit more perspective of where it is south of the river on South Main Street. So for a little history and background, we developed a plan called the Imagine Oshkosh Plan in 2017. And that area was more of a greater central city area. And within the plan, there was a functional sub-area. And it was called like the South Shore East District. And so from there, we decided to work on the Sawdust District area. It also helped with the elimination of the Buckstaff property and also helped attract the Menominee Nation area, South Main. So at the beginning of the planning process, we developed and put together the Sawdust District Advisory Group. So it was compiled of a variety of stakeholders in the area, maybe property owners or business owners in the area. So we met as needed with that group, and they reviewed all the work that we put together as staff. So the things that they provided input on included the project area boundary, the vision statement, and then preferred land uses throughout the district. So I have an image of the actual vision statement that we put together. This was all reviewed by that advisory group. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but you can find that on page 10. And then from the vision statement, we kind of extracted these guiding principles to help us make decisions for each of the land use districts. So the guiding principles include developing a mixed-use district. Mixed-use development was the main focus. Capturing an eclectic character in the area has, like, kind of embracing the history, has many historic land uses, industrial. The Sawdust name comes from all the lumber uses in the area. We wanted to encourage a more pedestrian-oriented environment, and we wanted to embrace all the different uses that the waterfront offers. So at the beginning of this process, we also looked at several plans that were already established and adopted. That include the Imagine Oshkosh plan. They had an existing conditions report with that plan also. We looked at the Center City Corridor plan. There was a riverfront visioning workshop that we looked at, the comprehensive plan, and then our updated one as well. The Fox River Corridor and the Downtown Action Plan. So we looked at all those to help guide this process. So some plan highlights are the concept visualization is on page 11. The land use plan is on page 13. The transportation information is pages 14 through 22. And then placemaking is on page 23. And then our functional sub-areas are page 29 through 35. So we put a lot of a focus on the actual roadway meaning South Main Street specifically. And we realized that we need to figure out exactly how we're gonna lay out that road. So we had the consultant develop this image here, which shows that there's the existing conditions, which shows how it is now. It's 2 lanes in each direction, right up against the sidewalks, and the buildings are right adjacent to that. And then we decided that a short-term plan, maybe 2 to 3 years out, would be needed. So that would include just restriping the road. We could potentially fit on-street parking, 1 lane in each direction, and a center turn lane. And then the long-term improvements, which would match the plan. The long-term plan would be 20 to 30 years, even 25 years. That would include adding some street trees, terraces to separate the roadway from the pedestrians on the sidewalk, on-street parking again, and then a center turn lane. And then we also recognize that the entire corridor isn't all the same throughout. So on the northmost section, 6th Avenue to 8th Avenue, there's more of a limited right-of-way. If you remember, there's some existing buildings that we probably would prefer for them to stay because they're currently being used and they're functional. So there is limited right-of-way, so that would stay as is. It wouldn't be as wide. It would probably remain at the 60-foot right-of-way, and hopefully we could add some terrace trees to make that improvement. And then when you go further south from 8th Avenue to South Park, we do have more options. So as development occurs and comes across, we could potentially acquire some land and then increase that right-of-way width. So this would be similar to what you see in the development pattern along where the arena is. There's a lot wider, there's wider sidewalks, and the actual right-of-way is wider, so making it feel a little more friendly for pedestrians and anyone visiting the area. And then there's the transition zone that goes from South Park down to 17th. We view this area as more of, it is a gateway, but it's also a transitional area where it's more car-oriented, and we would probably keep that 2 lanes in each direction. Then we move on to the placemaking. So South Main Street, we would like it to feature more of a pedestrian-oriented streetscaping to improve the aesthetics and the experience for visitors. The goal is to create a destination or place-specific identity in the district. So this could include public art, street furniture, tree grates, or light pole banners, and a variety of gateway and wayfinding signage. So we identified some major gateway features at 6th Avenue, 9th Avenue, and at South Park. You can see the yellow boxes on this map. And then we get into more of the land uses. We divided the area into 6 functional sub-areas. This map shows them. So we have the west transitional in the green, River North, we have the core area, we have the arena area, Pioneer, and then the South Gateway sub-area. Within the plan, each of these sub-areas has their own page that looks just like this one. And it has kind of like a description and desired land uses, transportation, placemaking, and a design and development section. So it's all for each 6 of those. And they're all kind of unique in their characteristics and what we would like to see there. And then we created a land use table, which you can see on screen. It has each of the sub-districts, and then it has a variety of land uses. And then we divided it into P for permitted by right, conditional use, permitted only if it's included in a mixed-use development, and then the X is for not desired or preferred. This is kind of extra information. We just like to highlight that there is this opportunity zone, which includes most of the Sadhas District, excluding the northernmost portion, I think from 6th to the river, or maybe further south, maybe 9th.
One of the things we've gotten as we have taken this plan out to the public is questions about how this interacts with the opportunity zone. So it's not part of the plan, but we do want to show you how it lines up with that. There's a fair amount of opportunity zone properties and therefore opportunities within the Sadhas District that could take advantage of some of those opportunity tax credit and funding mechanisms.
And then to just review the plan adoption process, we've done a variety of public speaking engagements. We did an open house for the public on January 29th. We had at least 30 visitors to that, if not more. So it was really well attended. We had a joint workshop with RDA and Plan Commission members, so some of you went to that. That was on February 11th. And then here we are today on the 18th at Plan Commission. And if all goes well, we hope to take this next Tuesday on February 25th to Common Council. And then we also have, RDA will be viewing it potentially on their March 18th meeting.
To talk a little bit about some of the next steps that city staff would undertake if this plan is approved by Plan Commission and Council, is to start looking at right-of-way opportunities for North Main Street. We know as some redevelopment takes place in that area, we'll try to get up to that 80-foot wide right-of-way. That could take a number of years, but as those developments reoccur, we want to be able to capture that right-of-way to ultimately build a 80-foot wide street. City would continue to focus on the development of Pioneer Island. We would proceed with starting to begin the Riverwalk. There is some RDA-owned properties on the north side of the district that we anticipate issuing RFP for later this spring. Start some redevelopment on the north side of the district. And then ultimately 9th Avenue. We are looking at potentially relocation of 9th Avenue. And if you can go to the next slide for me. So one of the things that the district includes is removal of Pioneer Island on the south side of the river, construction of the Riverwalk and potentially a linear park, what was previously in that area.
I mean Pioneer Drive?
Pioneer Drive,
Yeah.
excuse me.
The island be hard to.
Yeah, we're not going to remove the island. That would be difficult. And then we would take 9th Avenue and reconnect it in with Pioneer Drive that heads north-south to maintain access into the Pioneer Island area. So we would begin looking at scenarios for the redevelopment of 9th Avenue. To talk a little bit about this, this is the visualization we did as part of the Sadhas District. This is an update to that Sadhas District visualization that was done when we were trying to convince the Milwaukee herd to come to this area. So a little bit different than that plan. What this plan more focuses is showing the rhythm of potential developments. This visualization is not shown to say, okay, this is the building we want here, this is the building we want here, these are one here. It's more of shown, for example, these 4 blocks show different ways a block of that similar size could redevelop, a single load building with parking, end cap buildings parking between, a mixture of front loaded buildings with parking behind. Same with this area showing that you could do large L multi-use type buildings with parking between them. You could do some sort of U-shaped building. We just want to show that there's different varieties of ways that the area could develop and give some developers, at least an image of what they could expect to try to do in the area.
Okay, so in closing, just so we can get to questions, so staff recommends approval of the Sawdust District Plan as requested, so I can go back to the map for more.
Okay, thank you, Alexa. Technical questions?
For the different, like the existing roadway and then the short term, I'm not seeing like designated bike lanes or anything on that. Is that?
So one of the things we analyzed during this is whether it was appropriate to have bike lanes on South Main or not. In reviewing this and with the orientation of the roadway, the uses of the area, and we already have within the bike and pedestrian plan some parallel routes, for example, down Nebraska. Felt that it was probably still most appropriate to have Nebraska because you're going to have the Riverwalk on the east side of this district, so kind of having on both sides instead of paralleling them main and. As well as the southern part of the district really is going to be difficult because of some of the right-of-way constraints to include those. So really felt it was an opportunity that parallel routes is probably a better option than actual routes on South Main. One of the biggest concerns we heard with South Main Street is there is no parking. And you can't have commercial business thrive in the area when there's nowhere to park. So we were trying to balance, okay, do we bike lane one side, parking one side? Talking through with the advisory group, talking through with the stakeholder interviews we met with, the feeling is parking is probably the biggest need. And if we can still achieve some bicycle and pedestrian facilities, especially with parallel route for bikes, enhancing the pedestrian orientation along Main would probably be a better overall use for the area.
Should have brought this up in the 2 years I sat on the advisory board. How does the bridge fit into this? Because we spent some time in this group talking about the bridge and how does the Main Street Bridge fit into all of this? It's not technically in a district, I suppose, but it's.
Yeah, so the bridge that they're looking at redeveloping is Jackson Street
Okay.
Bridge.
My question still holds. It seems like the bridge could be a cool component to all this.
Yeah, if you remember, we took it off this plan because forever we had it on a bike and pedestrian bridge over the river as well, and just felt probably not realistic at this time. Alan, anything to add on that?
Just as a follow-up, I believe the Oregon Street Bridge is the first one to be replaced,
Yeah,
and that's somewhere in the next 10 years, and
Okay.
then Main Street could be 25 to 50 years out. I'm not sure they have a deadline or a timeline on that
Right.
one. But I can tell you the Fox River Corridor Plan, at some point, we want the river walk to go under the bridge and stay along rather than
Right, I
crossing
remember
at
that
grade.
Other technical questions from us? Go ahead. Justin.
After, if it's approved by this board and by the council and RDA, like how fluid is it? It still can be amended and changed and things added and things removed, or is it, that's what we're doing?
So it's a guiding plan. Obviously, any development that comes in is going to have to be evaluated based on the merits of the development. We anticipate that we may look to plan development zone a lot of this area for development in the future. Does that make sense? Like it's a guiding plan. It's not black and white stone ordinance.
Michael.
Yeah, you made reference to changing 9th Street, replacing 9th Street. What would that look like?
So it would be the extension of Ninth.
Yeah.
Ninth ends, in here. The current thought is to take it and wrap it into where the existing railroad crossing is, where
Yeah.
Pioneer Drive is today. So it'd just be that extension of weaving it back in.
Okay, perfect.
John and Mike, then Justin.
So, a very nice plan, and thank you for all the work that was done on it. I guess when I look at it, I see a lot of housing, see maybe some larger type businesses, industrial as we go further south, but what's the destination thing? What's gonna draw people to come here, or people that do come to the Pioneer? Is there an opportunity to put, some businesses along the river walk, where they could, walk during the appropriate, or all year round, but I mean, mostly in the summer months or warmer time of the year, and get ice cream or go to a coffee shop or something along that.
A couple of things. We envision, the goal is to create South Main similar to North Main, where you have those pedestrian-oriented business, walkability, the entertainment or arena district, looking to build on what the arena already has with some more entertainment type event spaces or uses that are going to draw those people in. That's kind of the goal of those two areas, is to bring people in. And then when you look at, for example, the River North District is looking at more of maybe adding some rooftops, whether it be apartments, condos, mixed-use development. And so trying to combine that live, work, play. We have the residents being added to the area, but then also focusing on some of those service and commercial uses that they're going to want in the area. Another way we're trying to draw people to the area is there are two shown trailheads for people to come from farther out of the area. We have a trailhead shown to the south and the north. Try to another way to activate people coming into the area using the river walk. Hopefully, coming to some of the local businesses.
You envision maybe the one further to the south being a spot where people could rent kayaks or paddle boats, whatever thing.
So some of the stuff that was talked about within the actual plan is focusing on river and lake-oriented businesses and activating those waterfront uses, whether it be through those type of uses. We have people talk, for example, about a water taxi, adding something like that to the area. The developers of Pioneer Island are also looking at adding some of that stuff.
Justin?
Yeah, I was curious, a lot of the plans that you referenced, or a number of them, have pretty strong language encouraging the city to implement natural, native plantings, landscaping relative to the proximity of the water. About 85, I think the DNR says about 85% of the state's endangered species are endangered because we've removed their habitat close to shore, which they need for survival. And so I was curious if there were any of the groups that were met with, or any, I didn't really see like an environmentally, any sort of category related to that here. And so is there a plan in place, or is there a way that we could include language related to some sort of native plantings? And it doesn't have to be, I know we're doing the Riverwalk and they prefer to have the riprap. It doesn't have to be immediately touching the water, right? It's usually within 20 feet or so. And it doesn't have to be a continuous thing. It can be island beds that allow for the insects and species to travel, and it doesn't just have to be that one continuous thing. So I was curious if you could comment on that.
Yeah, I can say the focus of this plan, when the advisory board took it up, was land use and transportation for the main part. We can definitely add some language to that. I would say that's probably even better suited for in the zoning ordinance. We've started some of that in the zoning ordinance with incentivizing native plantings and species. It would carry more weight in zoning than it would in this plan.
Sure. I mean, I know that part of the documentation that you provide the Plan Commission up front is the comprehensive plan and kind of a guiding document for the body. And there's a whole chapter or a whole section of the agriculture and natural resources that encourages, and it says the city will implement natural shoreline buffer areas and whatnot. And I know that it's not the focus. This isn't an eco-center development or anything like that, but I think it'd be a real lost opportunity if all of that shoreline between the river, the channel, the island, all of that, and we did nothing to kind of address our responsibility to kind of counter the damaging impacts that we've had on species, resulting in a large number of endangered species.
I said I was not part of the scope of this plan. Alan, do you have any thoughts of going back and adding to this plan? I said I think it's probably better suited like in the actual zoning ordinance where it has some teeth to it.
And we look at it project by project. I can say when we're working on the Pioneer Drive Riverwalk design, Pioneer Drive, it's basically concrete for the entire right-of-way. So we're looking at getting rid of all that concrete and putting in the natural features of the vegetation, as well as maybe some of the removing and restoring that shoreline. But that's really something that's hard for me to say above and beyond that, what we're going to do with everything else in that district. I can tell you most of that area is environmentally impacted one way or the other, so I expect there's going to be a lot of things that DNR and EPA are going to require us to do regardless of what we think when it comes to remediation. And then last but not least, I think everything that the Pioneer and the railroad right-of-way corridor, we're going to have a lot more plants in that area. So I think that's a great opportunity for all kinds of native plantings and vegetation and swales for stormwater management, because I don't think we haven't done a stormwater management plan, but we know we're going to have to do that as well for that whole area.
And for example, this plan doesn't necessarily, it doesn't override previous plans we've done. For example, the Fox River Corridor Plan, which is one of the documents we reviewed, and I think that's part of what you're talking about, has some of that discussion in there, is still going to be factored into development. We don't just look at the Sadhas District Plan as development moves forward. Those other documents are still vitally important.
Sure, I appreciate that.
Other technical questions? We're kind of getting general.
Could you expand just a little bit on, besides the advisory group, what other opportunities either residents or business owners had to kind of have input?
Definitely. So we did stakeholder interviews also. So we sent out, so we actually asked specific stakeholders if they would like to come in, and we met with them one-on-one, interviewed them, asked them several questions, what their vision was for the area, if they had any parcel-specific issues that they wanted to share with us that we didn't know about for their business or whatever. That was last winter.
Sent a notice to every property owner
Twice.
that owned property within it.
So we did a mass mailing for the whole area and then we just did it for this adoption process. We mailed it out to everyone. We invited them to the open house, and then we did. We met with the chamber. We presented to the chamber, and then the economic development group for the chamber. We're going to go to the Rotary
Club, and if Kathy's not here, the plan is to go to the League of Women's Voters as well.
Those meetings, how long, are those all going to be done in February yet? Or what's the timeline?
The Rotary and League of Women's Voters are going to haven't done. We've met with the chamber and the chamber's economic development committee, one in January, one in February. Rotary, I think they have it scheduled in April. It's hard to get on their timeline. And League of Women's Voters, similarly, I know they said they're already kind of booked up for March and into April. So we're anticipating going to them sometime in April.
So this gets passed in March, and then you have those meetings. And I know you said this is just a guide. I'm just curious if they make a strong recommendation and they really want to see that sort of thing, does that get added in as an addendum, or how does that?
So those are generally the way they've been done in the past, and the way Rotary asked us to come is just to show them the plan. They didn't actually ask for input, but if there's something that comes out in one of those meetings that is something we missed or important that we should get added, there's no reason we couldn't add it to the plan.
Other questions or thoughts? Anyone here from the public to speak to this item today? Okay, see none, back to the commission for further discussion. It's legislative, so I'm looking at my rules here, Amina. All right. We still need a motion, yep. Do we have a motion to accept?
Make a motion to accept.
Second?
All right, now discussion, further discussion, I guess.
Yeah, I got
Go ahead.
two more questions. There's a lot of park space here, and I know I asked that question, and I'm hoping to follow up at some point and get kind of a summary of what the park plan is. But is the Parks Department, or the Parks Board, Parks Advisory Board, do they also, given how much park space is
So we
proposed
have
in
not
this?
met with the Parks Advisory Board. We're meeting with the Parks Director late this week, early next week, to start to get into implementation, what we can do. You know, for example, the first thing we'd probably focus on that we're talking about is that linear park idea along what used to be Pioneer Drive, about how that can lay out. At some point, I would expect that, we probably need to do some sort of park plan with them.
Sure. And then follow up, just given all the environmentally sensitive waterfront areas, Sustainability Advisory Board, do they ever have an opportunity to?
We could take this to the Sustainability Board. In the past, they haven't weighed in on this type of plan.
Yeah, but they were all invited to the open house
Yeah,
as
we
well.
did invite,
Yeah.
all boards and commissions were invited to the open house.
Okay. Sure. And I know that, again, a lot of developments, you might not feel that it's appropriate, but just given how much environmentally sensitive space, it's just an idea.
Other thoughts? Go ahead, Michael.
And when we redevelop the Pioneer Drive, that would come back to this body, I would assume, or there'd at least be public hearings or something.
Or the Riverwalk,
Yeah.
I don't see.
Would that
why
be
that
needed?
would come
No?
back. I don't believe so. So
Okay.
Pioneer Drive is technically a city-owned property right now. It's not actually public right-of-way.
Okay. All right, well then I'll say this was a great plan, and I hope that you consider walleye on the river there. People like to fish right there anyways.
They
and
do.
The ability to make that safe would
The
be
Fox
awesome.
River Corridor Plan and I think even the Riverwalk plans we've already done do identify some public improvements to the area.
Awesome.
Specifically for fishing, if you want to
Yep.
bring up walleye, yes.
Sheep's head for me, but that's mostly my fault.
That wasn't your target at this time.
Other comments or quick, go ahead, Mama.
I see that there is only 2 railroad crossing, right?
Correct.
But a lot of walkways around the area. So are there any safety measures taken for the train?
So one of the things we've been discussing, and the feasibility is still being evaluated, is potential for a raised crossing. We just started that discussion. Obviously, they are relatively expensive, but it is something that we've discussed about how do we, take care of that pedestrian access to especially across to Pioneer Island.
I just a comment that I think thanks to the city staff for everything you've done here, the complexity and length of the vision statement illustrates what it's like to bring 55,000 partners together to create something. I remember sitting at that meeting and it was like tables of people and with all different, everybody had the best idea, and it just, even though that's very unwieldy and hopefully can be modified at some point, I think what you ended up with is really a solid plan for this area, and I do think it offers us flexibility, because I think as it becomes implemented, there's going to be some needed opportunities for people to weigh in about how some of these things look. But compared to what was there just 5 years ago, it already looks better.
Yeah.
Just thinking about it.
I
makes
would
me feel-
anticipate that as development starts to occur here, it's likely going to be within the plan development overlay zoning, and these will be coming through approval processes with this board and council.
Other thoughts before we vote? All right, call the roll, Mina.
Carey,
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Gross,
Aye.
Kulvali,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Kiefer,
Aye.
Wojtek.
Aye.
Motion carried 8-0.
Okay, no more business. We do have a workshop, but we have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, workshop.